Hello, this is Dylan, and I'm sorry if my face is awkwardly close to the screen, and I'm sorry if you guys can hear this mechanical sound in the background. I'm sitting where I slept last night behind a strip mall, and thankfully the sound wasn't there last night, but it started just a few minutes ago, I think, and it's really annoying. So anyways, I wanted to make this video because, sorry, my nose is running. I wanted to make this video because I had a couple of thoughts this morning, one of which I just thought to myself and the other I articulated to my husband Thomas, that I thought could be useful to share. I had them largely because I was in a really introspective place after smoking a fair amount of weed. Also sorry about the bird sounds if they trigger people. I apologize for that. I was in a really tripped out introspective place after smoking a lot of weed, but still a very clear thinking one in my opinion. And so I am very stoned right now, so if I have trouble remembering everything I thought or said, I apologize. I'm apologizing a lot. I don't mean to so much. But before I apologize for that, I'm just going to go ahead and say what I wanted to say for this video. So the first thought, and this is going to be really triggering for survivors, so you might want to be careful. The first thought was about a phrase from the show Hannah Montana, back when Miley Cyrus was doing that, or was in that, I should say. And the phrase was from the intro, "The best of both worlds." I remember their voice singing, "It's the best of both worlds. Don't you know I'm living in the best of both worlds?" or something like that. And I understood early in my recovery from MK that, to the best of my knowledge, this was a reference to the two worlds, quote unquote, as if there really is a duality here, which there is not. The quote unquote two worlds of MK Ultra and the general public. And the idea was that Miley and Hannah were two halves of the same person. And Miley was the front person who was living in the surface world, and Hannah was the MK Ultra pop star living in the elite world, quote unquote. I don't like these terms, that's why I keep saying that. I'm just saying what I understand the MK meaning to be. And I want to be clear, this is based on my memories of MK Ultra. You can easily dismiss them as being delusional because you don't believe that MK Ultra is ongoing. So just before I get sued here, I just want to say that. I'm not actually accusing anyone of anything. I am saying what I was told was going on, what I understood to be happening when I was a child in MK Ultra, based on my memories that you can accept or dismiss, if you will. So, anyways, I was thinking about this phrase and how I was told that if I submitted to the Monarch programming, I would be living in the best of both worlds, as if Miley and Hannah were having a wonderful time. But of course, I don't believe that to be true. I know for a fact that MK Ultra is horror, and that what the alters experience in the hell systems are just as valid and need just as much attention as what the alters experience in the heaven systems. I've been thinking about heaven hell programming a lot because of what I posted in my last singing video, Happy House by Susie and the Banshees, which definitely makes me think of that. And I've just been thinking a lot about how it's so important not to blame the heaven alters, because the heaven alters really were the hell alters not being able to handle it. They're the hell alters themselves. They just couldn't cope with what was going on, so they dissociated. And I found for me in recovery from the heaven hell programming, what's really important is to get in touch with the hell side and connect with it deeply and remember the moment when you became heaven. And I'm sorry, I really should have clarified that I'm speaking from a formerly predominantly heaven perspective. I'm still heavy on the heaven side. I haven't yet balanced out completely in my integrations. But I have been integrating to a degree with the other side and finding that I really was them. I couldn't cope with it, so I created me as I experienced myself to be separate before I started this integration. Okay, so I know that must have been extremely triggering to anyone who just watched this. I wish I had not said the name of that programming so many times there. I'm speaking from a very new place in myself from integration, and it's very hard for me to keep from repeating things. That's something that we had alters in our system there to do to try to keep from happening as much as possible. And now we don't have those functions. We have that sense that we should be watching ourselves about that. However, the sense that we have it from an integrated place is not as effective in regulating us as it was when we were dissociated and there were whole parts to do that by themselves. Having whole parts to do that by themselves made it so that we operated on a system of triggers, so that trauma would get triggered, the fear of hurting people through repetition as we were forced to when being used for programming others as a victim. We would relive that trauma as a way of keeping ourselves from doing it. However, that's obviously MK, and even though we had reprogrammed ourselves for, I would say, a good purpose, it was only a stepping stone. We've said before many times on here that reprogramming is, it can be a very useful stepping stone to do on oneself, changing up the roles or functions or orders of parts without actually integrating them or actually waking them up from the MK itself. You just change the directives somewhat so that the system is more under your control, so that you're more protected from your abusers and so on. Or so that maybe you're more set up in the future to try and break free more deeply. So those are just a few examples of why one might want to do that. However, that's not the end result that I think we, as survivors of mind control, should be going for. I personally feel that, if possible, we should all seek to fully deprogram, meaning actually let go of all programming and be in a free, conscious state of mind instead of still operating on a system of triggers, because I don't see any way to reprogram an MK system without it still operating on a system of triggers. So anyways, I meant to say this before, and now I've just continued talking. I really am in quite a place right now. I'm so amazed, honestly, and excited to see what I'm capable of saying now. I'm talking much more freely than I ever have before on here. So I meant, however, to say that I know this is very triggering, I'm sure, for a lot of people watching this. And I know I'm talking very fast, and I would like to take a moment to give you all a chance to ground yourselves if you want to. If you're not able, if that's not safe for you, or you don't want to, that is totally okay. But if you do feel safe, if you feel like it would be the right thing to do and you want to join me, I'm going to take a moment to ground myself here so that I can remember the rest of what I was going to say. Okay, I feel slightly calmer now. I am really racing with adrenaline right now. I am truly, honestly terrified to be sharing this because I am afraid that this will be suppressed, and I am afraid that bad things will happen to me and my partner that have not thus far happened yet. However, there is no way that I can go back. I can only keep moving forward, and if that does get me killed, then that is what happens, and I'm trying to be in acceptance of that. So the last thing that I wanted to say in this video, it was the thing that I said to my husband. All of that was just stuff that I thought in my head and then just spilled out now from thoughts I'd had previously. But the last thing I wanted to say was I don't, wow, I'm so emotional about this. I'm having trouble with my words. I've integrated so much with myself that I haven't regressed heavily in the last couple of days. Normally, at least a third of my day is spent at about the age of 6 years old. But that part of me has healed so deeply. So as the child that was called Sai or Rose, healed so deeply that they, as far as I know, are not here anymore. They are just inside me. And so they are very much here, but they're not separate. And I've not been switching into them, and I feel so healed. It is just incredible. And something came to me, I'm sorry, I'm tripping on my words. Something came to me about how there is no adult separate from the inner child, that adults are just matured children, and that thinking of adults as anything but matured children is very unwise. And that when we think of ourselves as that, what it actually means is that we have been cut off from our inner child. We have dissociated to compensate from the loss of that. And we have made up a fantasy in which we have grown up, when in actuality we have not really grown up, because in order to do so, one has to care for the inner child, has to reparent themselves into a state of wholeness methodically. At least it's been very methodical in my experience. It's what I've had to do, is be very systematic, no pun intended. But what I'm trying to say is if you had needs that were not met in childhood and you do not go back in adulthood and try and repair that damage by healing the shame that you internalized as a child that blocked you from receiving this care, from growing, and from learning how to take care of yourself properly when you were older, if you do not go back and work through that, then in a way you're not really going to be an adult, not completely. And I don't say any of this to belittle or delegitimize anyone, and it's an ironic thing to say, but I'm really not saying this in any way to be hurtful. And if you don't feel like this applies to you, if this doesn't sit with you, then I hope that you'll put it aside until maybe one day it does. But I just feel like it's important to share this because I feel that these are universal human truths. The language that I got for this, I got in a 12-step program called Adult Children of Alcoholics. And I've tried to be very minimal about talking about 12-step stuff on here because I know that those organizations don't wish for people like myself to publicly talk about them, or at least not identify themselves as members. But the thing is that I have not been in years now. I haven't been to a meeting because I was experiencing too much cult targeting there, and it was undermining the whole thing for me. I haven't been in a long time, and I probably won't go again. And I just honestly feel like it is important right now that I give credit where credit is due for these ideas. So really, I'm trying to thank the founder. I think his name was Tony, assuming that there was not MK stuff going on and more to it than I'm saying. I would like to thank Tony, and even if there was MK stuff, perhaps I still have him to thank. So I'd like to thank that person, the alleged founder of ACA, and I think one of the principal writers of the big, they call it the Big Red Book. I'm sorry if that's triggering. That's what they call it. Their basic text. I'd just like to thank him. I'm not sure how much he wrote it, but I really appreciate the works of that man. And so really, rather than draw attention to the program, I'd just like to thank that person. Okay. Wow, this is a lot more than I intended to share, but I really hope that this helps people. And if you're not a survivor, I really do encourage you, if you want to be an ally here, I really encourage you to take the time to think about what I said. I know I talked really fast and I used a lot of terminology that maybe people outside of these situations don't know. So I'd really encourage you to maybe, if you feel able and inclined, take some notes or something on what I've said and make a point of trying to actually understand everything because, we really do need your help. Most survivors of this are not anywhere near as functional and cognizant as I am. I am in a very tiny minority here. The majority of us are terribly, terribly trapped. And I still am in many ways. I'm still in great pain. I'm homeless. And while in many ways I've accepted that as part of my path right now and am trying to embrace it as where I need to be, it is still very painful, and I would like to have a home. And while I'm not asking you guys to house me, I actually cannot accept that. After being trafficked for all those years and knowing how many people want to hurt me and might want to hurt me again, there's just no way that I could do that, and it would mess with my credibility, I feel, on here. So I'm just not going to do that. But, there are many of us who do need homes who might be able to accept them. And if you can do anything to help us by housing us if you're capable, by simply treating us with dignity and respect and holding space for our existences, that would do so much good for all the trafficked adults and children of the world, inside and outside of actual cults like the one I grew up in, but really all of us. And I think that a big place to start could be with examining the words I've said here in this video and in my other videos in the past. Okay, thank you so very much. I hope that this doesn't get suppressed. I really hope that, well, I'm sure it will be to some degree. I do hope that it doesn't get completely, because I really do want people to hear what I've said. Thank you.